Hello, good morning. Happy weekend. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Samantha. This is Winona Reads. And it is Saturday, and this is going to be my January and February reads because I didn't review my January reads, and then I'm going to have a separate video following right after this one for my March TBR, and that will include my classic for March. Let's just get started. I do want to say again thank you to my newer followers. I hope you guys are liking the content. I do try my hardest being a mom, and I recently just started a new job. This past week was my first full week, so I do feel a lot happier. It is a little bit more work, but I'm enjoying where things are at right now. So let's dive right in. I am gonna have to look at my Goodreads because I honestly don't remember like order or any of that. And I do have a couple of audiobooks, so I'll put the pictures on the screen. I don't have the physical copies, but let's get started. The first book that I had finished in January was one that I actually started in December, but that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I don't know what I did with the cover, and I rated that one 4 out of 5 stars. It took me a while to get into it in the beginning, and I just think it was because I wasn't used to her writing, her style. But it was about a girl named Alex who goes through like this traumatic experience, and she afterwards is able to have sort of like a magical spiritual power. Okay, so when she turns 20, so after that accident, she's in the hospital. She's 20 years old, doesn't really know where her life's gonna take her because the beginning of her life was very traumatic and a lot of like drugs and mischief and all that stuff. And so she's in a hospital bed, and someone comes to visit her. They are from the Yale like underground society, and they ask her if she wants to join, kind of like I'll give you a better life-ish, kind of like somewhere that you'll fit in and you'll feel like you belong. And she really doesn't seem to feel that way in the beginning, but I think as time goes on, with one of her friends in that society, well, I wouldn't say friend, I think he's like a mentor, he goes missing, and without him there, she kind of has to like find her own way and see how she fits into that. So yeah, it was really good. It did take a while for me to get into, but like I would say like halfway through to the end, I was super glad that I like pushed myself and finished it because it was good, and I did think about, you know, what the characters, like how it would end and what happened to the characters. And I do think that she's writing a second one, or has written it, and it's going to be released. So I definitely will continue the series, and I'm glad that I finally picked it up because it's been on my shelf for a little bit, and I've seen so many people talk about it and say it was good. It just took me a while to get there. So the next one after that I read was an audiobook, and that was Tokyo Ever After by Amiko Jean. It was the first in a series. It's a YA series, and I think I had heard about it from a couple different booktubes, but I saw that it was, I'm gonna double check myself, but I'm pretty sure it was one of Reese's YA books of the month. Sorry if you can hear my kids downstairs. My husband's hanging out with them, but we woke up kind of grumpy. Anyway, so I rated this 3.8 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It was really cute. I felt like some of it was a little bit rushed maybe, but that could be part of like that YA aspect of it. But it was a girl who grows up in, I think it's New York City, no, California. Okay, I knew it was a big major city. So she grows up in California with her mom. She doesn't know anything about her dad. She's given like a story about like what happened to her dad, but I don't remember how she finds out. I don't remember that. Anyway, she finds out that her dad wasn't the person that her mom said. It was this other person, and she takes a trip over to Tokyo to see like his way of life. He's like this really prominent figure in Tokyo, and which comes with like different manners, different like cultural, like just different ways to act in the society, especially being like so prominent and powerful. and she kind of feels like she, not only does she seem to feel like she doesn't really know who she is, like she wants to like explore that, but being a teenager in high school, it's kind of like a double whammy almost, if anyone even says double whammy anymore. But it is, you know, who am I as a teenager, and then who am I with dual societies, kind of, and, you know, all the stuff that comes with being a teenager, like being judged by other kids and all that stuff. So it was definitely a good read. I am gonna pick up the second one. It is on my Audible like wish list, so I definitely will listen to that. I loved the audiobook, loved. So I will continue with it that way, just because I feel like YA and rom-coms for me are easier to fly through when I listen to them rather than like sit and read them. So I tend to read like more, well, sometimes I tend to read like more serious stuff, physical copies, and then audiobooks are like the fun stuff that I listen to for the majority. The next one in January that I had read was, I listened to it was Black Book by Matteo Ascaripour, and I want to see, I didn't love it. I finished it in 3 days. Yeah, these are kind of mixed reviews. A lot of 3 and 4 stars on Goodreads. I rated it 2.5. So I liked how it started. I liked the dynamic of race in a workplace and seeing how, I think it was like a startup company, so I was interested in seeing how a younger work dynamic would still have those racism issues, and it was very present in the like right off the bat, and I felt like it was a really strong beginning. It had good momentum, but then I wrote like in my review, like at like 66% through the audio, I felt like it was getting a little bit like sloppy, and by the end of it I was like, it's not one that I'm going to remember. I feel like for some reason I just didn't like the ending. I liked the realistic parts of racism within it. Like, I feel like stuff that's very prominent in our society today. It's like the way at his workplace they were saying, that's not racist. Like, make a comment and then, but that's not racism. I feel like that's more of a realistic portrayal in like younger like culture today, that people make comments and then they say, but that's not what I meant. And it's like, well, it doesn't take away from the fact that you still said it and the connotation of it and the way it comes across. So I liked how it was written. I just feel like after the first half of it, it just kind of started to get like all over the place and like kind of take on too much maybe. So yeah, I didn't love it. The next one was my classic, Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. So this one I read the physical copy. It is only 170 pages. I rated it 3.75 out of 5. I did like his writing. It was very accessible, I think, in the sense that like as far as a classic, it's not like wording that you don't understand, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think. I tagged a bunch because there were a lot of quotes that I liked and a lot of things that I think are still relevant. Sorry, I just got a foot cramp. I liked the beginning. So I liked Franny more than the Zoe part. Some parts were weird. Like, I'm trying to think. I think it was the Zoe part when Zoe was in the bathroom and his mom was like in there talking to him the whole time, or like something like that. Like, I don't know. The second half didn't really flow with me, but I think as far as, sorry, that's still my daughter. What was I gonna say? Mom brain. I constantly don't remember what I was gonna say. So the aspect that I liked of this was trying to figure out who you are. The reason that I feel like I connected maybe more with the Franny part of the book was, so she's in college and so is her boyfriend, but it's funny, so he would say like he wasn't as stuffy or arrogant maybe as the other people, but he was like in his, you know, depictions of literature and all that stuff, and that's kind of what she was starting to stray away from. So she went to school for, I believe, literature or poetry, didn't really like her teachers, and their like views on the stuff that they were reading. She felt very like opposed to some of the points that they were making, and she just kind of was like, well, what do I do now? Do I continue, you know, this path? Do I choose something different? Like, the way I'm reading this isn't the way that my, you know, male white teachers are reading this. So I think it definitely was something that, as far as like maybe self-discovery, like it was starting like that question, maybe like existentialism a little bit. But I thought it was a good read. I would recommend it. I just didn't love the second part. So then I picked up the Book Wanderers Pages & Co. by Anna James. I feel like I needed a little bit of a break after a classic, so I did pick this up and I flew through it. I rated it 5 stars. I loved it. I loved the introduction to the characters, to the world. I thought it was a newer concept as far as children's literature, that you're able to travel within stories, but there are rules, and there are... I'm just gonna keep going because I feel like her crying might last a while. Let me review. Tilly and I think his name is Oscar. Yes, Oscar with K. So this was Tilly and Oscar. They go through children's literature books, and characters start presenting themselves in the real world. They are able to travel into the literature, which I thought was so creative. I think it was really well written, well done. After reading the first one, I did, because I bought the series for one of my nieces, and her mom was reading it with her at night, like a chapter here and there. And what they had said was there were a lot of big words, which after she said that, I did realize that there are quite a bit of big words. But I think that's a little bit almost the point of it as well, if that makes sense. I feel like sometimes in children's literature, there are words, hang on. I think sometimes that may be the point of things, to kind of branch out of the words that they're used to and have to look stuff up maybe. I don't know if that was actually her intention, but I feel like it should be if it wasn't. Anyway, so yes, I did read that one, and I had ordered the other 2, and then I ordered the last one that is currently out, and I know one is being released soon. I saw that cover art released on Instagram, so I'm excited that the story continues. The next one I listened to was Honor by 3D Umragar. It was a Reese's Book Club pick. I rated it 5 stars. This one was a journalist who traveled over to... Okay, I don't see where... Okay, I'm not sure about the location, but it was like a Muslim society. The writing was amazing. It was a very fast read, but it was also so developed and politically significant for, I think, a lot of people that don't know what's going on in those parts of the world. So the journalist goes over to write about a story that happened where a woman was attacked by men from her culture. But then you start to learn a little bit more about the journalist herself, where she was born, what she grew up in, and then it continued to the story of the woman after. Something else happens that's very tragic, and then it goes into what happens after the second event. And I just thought it was very, very well done. Highly recommend. And yeah, that's all I have to say. It was very good. The next one after that was Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousins. I rated that 4 to 5 stars. That was a rom-com that I had picked up in February, I think. No, that was the end of January. Bye! That was the end of January. But I picked that up in sort of like anticipation for like Valentine's Day kind of. And that was a contemporary about I think she was also a journalist, no? Or she worked for a magazine. She's supposed to be doing a story. I'm trying to think. Something about like at the airport. She missed a cab or something? No, she picked up the wrong suitcase. So she goes to the place that she's staying, lets them know what's happening, that she lost her she lost her suitcase. She had a gentleman's, and she had another gentleman's suitcase, and she said that she wasn't giving it back to the airport until they figured out who had hers. So she, in her head, already had planned like this whole meet cute kind of thing. Okay. Sorry, I am back. If you hear a toddler screaming, it's because I put my daughter down for a nap because she is way overtired. She would not fall asleep last night, and so she's upset now that she has to go back to bed. But it is noon, so she should. Anyway, this is mom life. So it was like a meet cute. They ended up finding out who had her suitcase, and she has all these like preconceived ideas. Then the magazine says they want to write a story about like how they happened. I think she was like a relationship column or something like that. So they wanted to do a story on her, and come to find out like the guy was super handsome, all that stuff. But no connection to like him, and so when they come to do the story, she's like, sorry, I can't. I ended up falling in love with this guy instead. So it was like the owner of where she was staying, his wife had left him and then came back, and like it was very well done. It was a lot going on, and it was actually very well done. I would definitely read her writing again, and the narration was good as far as like audiobook. So the next one was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This one I gave 4 stars, 4 out of 5. Excuse me. Oh, this was about a main character named Holden. It was winter, and I think it was like winter break, so like Christmas time. He goes to an all-boys school, I believe, where they end up kicking him out. It's one of those kind of, he didn't apply himself, but he was smart enough that he should have been able to pass his classes and that kind of thing. Like people would come to him and ask him to do their homework, but like he wouldn't actually do anything himself. And it's kind of another existential, like, who am I, where do I fit into society kind of story. So there definitely was a little bit of a pattern with his writing. I remember liking, I'm trying to think, yeah, so it was a coming of age literature, all-time classic, teenage alienation, capturing deeply human need for connection. So I do agree with that. I think a little bit of it, why I didn't rate it 5 stars, was the sort of, sorry, I keep playing with my hair. What was I gonna say? Oh, like his discussions with women kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, it was fitting for the time period that it was written in, but it was just a little bit like egotistical and annoying as far as reading it from a female perspective. Other than that, I did enjoy it, and I felt like it was a pretty fast read. I'm pretty sure this is February now, so the 2 after that I listened to on Scribd, and that was the FINLAY Donovan duology. Well, it's a duology right now. I don't know if it's going to be a series, but that is by L. Casamano. The first one is FINLAY Donovan is Killing It. The second one is Knocks 'Em Dead. And this was about a older woman, well, 30s, which I'm in, so she was not older by any means. She was a mom of 2, and her husband left her for someone else. She's a writer, and she met with her editor, I think, and they were, you know, waiting for a copy of the next book that she was promised. She had already blown through all of her, what are they called? I can never think of the words. Her advancement. So they were like, we can't give you any more money if you don't produce, you know, pages. And so she was trying to figure that out, trying to balance mom life, and kind of trying to still deal with like the heartbreak of losing her husband, and also I think figuring out who she was after being a mom. She just seemed kind of lost and kind of like grungy in the beginning. And so she meets with her editor at a coffee shop. Someone mistakes their conversation for something totally different. I think you can tell by the story and other booktubers reviews, it's like a hitman situation. and then kind of like funny stuff happens after that. I mean, for what it is, I loved it. I loved listening to it. I loved the vibe, how it flowed so perfectly. Is it unrealistic? Yes. But was it so enjoyable? Yes. So I get why it's hyped up. So definitely thank you to Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte, because she kept talking about the book and I was like, well, it's on script. I might as well just see what she's talking about. And it was good. I liked it. And then obviously the second one is like a continuation of what happened and possibly another job, that kind of thing. So yeah. Then the next 3 after that I read were the rest of the Pages & Co. series. And this one, I don't know where the cover is. I think it's downstairs. The map of stories. That just kind of was a continuation of the first one in the sense of Tilly and Oscar still kind of being together and working through the like society rules of book wanderers and that kind of thing. And then this one, The Lost Fairy Tales, is a continuation in a different sense. It's one of the concepts that's mentioned in the second one. Fairy tales are kind of considered dangerous to travel in, especially for younger book wanderers because of how complex they are. And so obviously stuff happens. Sort of I think it was mentioned in that one of the train. I'm trying to think of what it's called. The train that, well, I don't remember the name, but it's able to bring people. There's no fare. The price of the ticket or the trip is something from your imagination, like a concept. So in that sense, it's still magical. And then the last one was The Book Smugglers, which kind of continues that concept as far as focusing more on Milo and Tilly rather than Oscar. So I just like how it's like a little piece of the last one and then a new kind of story and then a little piece of that one and then a new, like it just branches very well. Like they're very well connected. I do love it. So I am excited for the next one. That would be book number 5. Then after those, I read a classic, The Little Prince. So my February classic was supposed to be Fitzgerald, and I had picked The Beautiful and Damned, I believe. I tried like 3 separate times and I was like, okay, it's a new year. I'm not gonna let this be something that I force upon myself and not something that's going to like put me out of reading for a little bit. Like sometimes that happens. If I can't fall into something, then I kind of get discouraged and I don't pick anything else up. So I didn't want to start the month that way. So I did try a couple different times. I could not get into it. I found I like his writing, but I have to be like in the mood for it, and I guess I just wasn't. I like the time period. He kind of projects a little bit into his writing, but I found that the way it was starting off was too much of himself in his writing, and it was just bothering me way too much. I could not continue it. I know I'll pick it up another time. I'll try again, because like I said, I do love his writing style, but I just could not. It was too much of him. So I will give it another chance another time, but instead I picked up The Little Prince because I still wanted to do a classic for the month. And I loved this. I'm sure I gave it a 5. Yep. So it's a very short little book. The concept is he comes across a little prince, of course, who questions things that adults tell him, questions why things are the way they are, and I just loved it. I couldn't find my stickies, so I put a couple of different like little dots next to the writing. I'm sure you didn't see that, but like for like page 2 right off the bat, it says grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and it is exhausting for children to have to provide explanations over and over again. It just brings you into like that child mentality, and you're like, yeah, you're right. Why do we have to be so serious as adults? Why are things this way? Like it was very well done. It was very cute, and I do recommend. The next one was an audiobook. That was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is highly talked about. Bookstagram, BookTube, all of those. and I rated it 4 out of 5. It was very well written. It was Olive and Adam. I couldn't think of his name. So Olive is a student and Adam is a teacher, right? And anyway, it's a lab in Stanford, and she starts out, she like bumps into him but doesn't realize that it's him because her eyes are closed. She got something in her eyes. And then cut to a different situation where her current relationship doesn't work out and her friend really connects with her ex-boyfriend, but because of girl code won't date him. So she like tries to show her that like, he wasn't for me, you can't, like, you seem like a better fit, you can. And the friend says no, 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 no. So she says, look, I'm over him, and just kisses someone else. Turns out to be the person that she already met. Doesn't realize his like title and stature in the lab, and then comes to find out like all these different things, like who he really is. And it's also kind of stereotypes about who other people think he is, and her realizing, you know, there's more than the things that other people are telling him, more than what she's heard, and kind of why he says and does the things he does. And yeah, so I rated, I mean, it was a cute love story, definitely perfect for around Valentine's Day. Flew through it, so it was a great listen. The next one I read was The Beauty and Breaking by Michelle Harper. I finished this through our Lake Placid trip, and I did rate this one 4 out of 5 stars. So this was a memoir. It kind of dives, I did it again, why do I say delves? I'm gonna look that up. Is delves a word? It dives into her divorce, her relationship with her husband fails. So it goes into, there's so many different aspects of the book, which is why I loved it so much. So it goes into obviously stories about her occupation. She's an ER specialist, or ER doctor. And so it goes into like transferring between different hospitals, how she got to where she is as far as an ER doctor, you know, like how, like who mentored her and like who put things in her head as far as like teaching her things that she would remember. Then it goes into her divorce and like dating again, trying to find time, you know, kind of letting things go, finding out who she is, switching locations, and, you know, having to find like that like inner peace between like having a new place, having a new job without your husband. So it's so complex, but it was so well written. I never felt like, you know, as far as like an ER doctor, I was never like, what is this? The stories that she wrote were just very well done. Honestly, I hope she writes another one about more ER stories maybe about post-divorce, like if she ever found like a serious relationship after, especially with that occupation, has to be so hard. So very, very invested. I loved it. I would recommend. And yeah, so those were my January and February reads and ratings. Let me know down below if you have read any of these or if you think you'll pick any of them up. And I hope you have a good weekend. I will see you soon. Thank you for all the support so far. I hope I'm doing a good job. And I will see you guys soon. Like, comment, subscribe, do the little notification thing, and I'll be back soon. Bye.